bit about modular classrooms?
Sure. So the modular classrooms in this particular option are going to be required in any scenario moving forward because we're moving around the entirety of the building and we're reconstructing it piece by piece in a variety of phases as we go through. So when we touch in particular the C wing or the B wing, we're impacting a tremendous number of classes in either one of those wings. The C wing has about I think 51 classrooms in it. The B wing may have about 45 classrooms in it. And so if we think about each one of those being an individual phase, at that time that we're actually touching either of those wings, we actually have to have a modular classroom building on the site somewhere to accommodate those 51 classrooms potentially. Where exactly those modular classroom buildings might be located, we don't know that yet, but we'll look at various opportunities as compared to where parking needs to be, as compared to where construction, logistic, laydown areas need to be, and try to find sort of that correct balance in terms of where. But the number of classrooms that we have to accommodate in the modular classroom buildings is considerable. Here we don't have a lot of opportunities to reduce that overall, with the exception of thinking about the schedule for the school once we get into the construction process. And when I say by looking at the schedule from a classroom perspective, I'm really thinking about are there ways that we can shift towards a shared classroom model that might get better operational efficiencies and require a smaller number of classrooms, not in the finished condition, which we have to comply with, but even in this interim condition, so that we don't have to build more temporary classroom spaces and displace more teachers and students into those temporary modular classrooms as part of the process.
Sure. The other thing that I feel like I am thinking about when I'm thinking about modular classrooms in this option is that it doesn't look to me, and please tell us if this is not true, that there would be a way to avoid modular classrooms for our CTE programs or some disruption of where they are, because we would be renovating their space too, right?
Correct.
So there's disruption. When we talk about disruption, we don't want any students to be disrupted, but we know that every student will be disrupted through this process somehow or some way, right? But it's especially problematic in our CTE spaces. So can you talk a little bit about your experience there?
Yes, so the impact on the CTE students definitely needs to be considered alongside the academic students. It's a different type of consideration. There are some CTE programs where we could plan to have like a double-size modular classroom area where they could actually move out into that space, something like a programming and web development where it's essentially a computer lab in terms of where they're going to be working. There are other programs, CTE programs like auto tech, right, where it's difficult or impossible to build a temporary modular auto garage for them to work in. So what we've done in past projects where we have this type of situation and it's not feasible to rebuild temporary space is actually look to outside community partners that may have an available auto garage that the students could use to actually perform sort of the education, the curriculum instruction that they need in a remote facility. The downside there is that means that those students are hopping on a bus at the beginning of the day. If it's a week on, week off program, they're headed over to that shop the entirety that they're not on campus for any of the time when they should be. In some cases, if it is a week on, week off program, that may not look too different for them. But if it is a program where they are here in the morning and then they're moving into their CTE shops in the afternoon, it means that every day that they are hopping on a bus back and forth. So it's time lost on education, and it's also taking them out of their educational environment, away from their peers, and away from all the resources that would otherwise be here at the high school. So very, very impactful in terms of what it would mean to those CTE students. So
when we talk about modulars and disruption, I think many of these options have disruption and modulars. As we went through them and made these decisions to advance these 6, this felt like the most problematic to me in terms of modulars and disruption, and particularly disruption of CTE spaces. Is that fair?
It is fair to say, because we
Yeah.
just don't have the lever, and we'll talk about that when we're talking about some of the C and the D options, in terms of potentially opening a portion of the building earlier in phased construction so that we could move students and teachers into new construction as opposed to temporary modular, which is when, if we have the option of building something new off the footprint of the existing building, we do have that available to us. The B 1.2 option does not have that available because we're sticking within the existing footprint and we're going up. So there's nowhere to go but here, essentially, in terms of space.